Hello YouTube family, James Green, Short Series Shenanigans. So today's video we're going to be doing a brief overview of a dividing head. It is a Brown & Sharp 0 or a BS 0 dividing head, and it's got it's a universal dividing head. So I've always used in the past I've had a super spacer or my rotary table, so using this is a little bit different, and there's different types of indexing you can do depending on what you want to achieve. Different types out there, and I'm just going to do a basic overview of this. So if you guys are interested, or those of you that may already have one, I know there's videos out there on the internet that talk about dividing heads, so I'm not going to really try to add anything new to the conversation or reinvent the wheel, but I am going to show you this. And if you guys are interested in maybe purchasing one, or you're on the fence and you're not sure, so this is actually an import one, and you can actually get these at all industrial tool supply. So I'm going to go over it real quick, give you an overview. And there was one thing when I got mine in the manual in the back, and I'll talk about that at the end. It took me a little bit to figure it out, and there was a chart. And you know me, I always like to try to pull the math out of things to simplify it, because everybody learns differently. Some people are really, really good at math, and they're like the Rain Man. You can throw numbers at them, and they, oh yeah, here's the deal. Or if you're new to machining, metalworking, and you want to use one of these, and this one is actually a 40-to-1. So this chart that's in here, it's specifically for the 40-to-1. There's a myriad of combinations out there that have different gear ratios, so this is a 40-to-1. So what I'm going to talk about here is just real simply, it came boxed, great, just like all the other import tools you get. It already had the chuck on it, it had the protected stuff. So what I like to do whenever I get equipment like this is go through it, number one, to clean off all that protectant. They do that because when items are shipped, they have to protect them from the salt and air when they travel or in storage and stuff like that. So you go through it, and it's always an understanding, just like when I talked about with my slip roll that I got. You go through it, you clean it up, you get to know the piece of equipment, you double check all the fasteners, because sometimes certain items, they purposely ship certain things loose, so that way during shipping, things get dropped and jarred, they don't get broke. There were zero issues with this whenever I received it. It did come with, and I've got them put up over here, let me grab them real quick. Some extras, and plates, and a couple of other items, and I'm not going to bring some other screws and things that came with it, but so it came with additional items, okay, because the thread pitch on here is 1.5 by 8 TPI that's on here. It has the a Brown & Sharp number 7 taper in this one. The next larger one, which is the BS 0, that's literally like this tall, has a Brown & Sharp 9 taper on the inside. And so it came with 2 extra division plates. It came with 3 total. So the division plates on these, and it also came with, because on this style, you have to, if you want to grip things from the outside, you actually change the jaws. And they're actually numbered, you know, 1, 2, and 3. And you slide them in. And so this is to grab stuff from the outside, or if you have a ring and you want to expand. These are just the opposite. Something large, you need to grab it from the outside diameter. So this is has the I haven't measured the exact diameter because I haven't put these in yet. I left the protectant on these because I haven't used them yet. I did kind of wipe them down. Alright, so the other thing is, if you have a center in there and you need to use an item, or you end up whatever, you have a dog plate, whatever, because this is a universal item, whatever you need to change out and adjust or move. I mean, there's even some that you can get change gears to go into the back to come off and do I'll just say other types because I don't want to get you guys confused. There's, you know, you can hook this thing up to where You can have gears coming off the back and run it to your build table to if you're going to do some type of milling an item like a flute on something specific, and you want to. So that's really getting into the weeds on things. But so the biggest number that appears on this is a 49. So it goes from 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 on this first wheel. The second one that I have in holds 24, or correction, 21, 23, 27, 29, 31, 33. Now I've put that one in because that's a project coming up. And the next one is 37, 39, 41, 43, 47, 49. Now, again, depending on what type of head you have, because there's lots of manufacturers that have made their own versions depending on what you're going to do. So as far as with the math, like I said, there's a lot of videos out there. I will give a shout out to a fellow YouTuber up here in the top, Machining Moments. He was very, very helpful. I had some questions because I'm new to this, and you guys know I've explained in the past. I had a really, really crummy math teacher growing up in junior high school. So when I'm first doing math problems, something I haven't done yet, and getting started with it and getting your brain wrapped around the idea. So I really want to give him, he was very, very helpful, and we'll talk about that in another video, but go check his channel out. So one thing about it, you guys can see it's got an adjustable tailstock, moves very, very freely. Now I haven't set the height on this. The height still needs to be set. I need to verify how everything is level, and I'll go over that in another video to get your work height set. And the reason for that is, let me set these over out of the way, and I will show you how to go about that in another video. But basically, you can use it several different ways. It's got some holes in here on a plate, and I'm not going to pull this off, but it's also got numbers here on the top, okay? And you can see there's several of them, and I'll get some close-ups here in a little bit. But it's also got here in the top, and you'll see on this side, a lever. So it already has slots, so if you want to do direct indexing, kind of like a super spacer, and you get into that hole, you lock it into that hole, and that locks it down, and then to make sure that it doesn't move at all, that locks the quill from turning. So if you are using an item or indexing where the rod is not involved, you're not direct, but you come up with whatever the combination is, and it's in between those, you just leave this out, and this is what locks everything in so it doesn't rotate until you're ready to move everything through the gates for your next item. Now, I will say this, the only one thing, and I will scoot the camera down here and zoom you guys in a little bit. Okay. So the only one thing that I found that I had issue with is when I went to go change my plate and pull the first one off that was on there, because it came with the highest numbered plate on there. Okay. It had, and you can see some white paper in behind there. So this is, you're supposed to, after you pull this, you pop this off, and then you can, you know, change your plates. Well, this kept coming out every time, this spring thing. So what I did was, and I'll show you guys, and it takes a 5mm. What I did was, if you get one of these, this is probably something you're going to have to do. This is the only issue I've found so far with this. So if you want to call it something to do when you first get it as a modification, I would recommend it. I tried every way to make sure that this clip would not pop off. No matter what, it kept coming off. So I thought, well, that's garbage, I don't like that. So I went through my assortment, because I've got big assortments of E-clips. I found a large E-clip, and I did have to shrink it a little bit. I put it on, it was still just a little bit loose, so what I did was I just took and used one of these, wrote out on a piece of paper, and then this gate here, I don't want to take it off, and just put a piece of paper in. That gave me enough clearance to make sure it would just, so that way when you're moving through your gate, if you're on an area here, what it would do without that paper is it would just fall down. So it gave me enough friction behind there, and that E-clip, that fixed the issue. So if you get one of these, that's something I would recommend doing right off the bat, because this, when you go to move your gates, it would hit it. No matter which way you set it, it would just work off. So that's something you'd have to do. Now, you'll notice here on the side, the camera's picking it up, so I'll leave it right there. You can see, you can go from -10, tilted down, all the way up to 90 degrees, and it's got dovetails here. Here's your indicator where it goes. If you slide it around here, and I'm gonna have to, I've been playing with it and I cleaned it up, but I haven't zeroed everything out, is so on this side here, these are the two, they're 17 millimeter. You'll have to loosen those, and those will tighten everything up. I will say that when you get ready to do this, that is going to be fun to get it set up, but I'll show that in another video. One thing I also will note, whenever you do pull this off on the back, because they talk about, at times you can get a little bit of slack between your the gears in here. So there's actually an adjustment in here behind this that actually, if you end up with a little slop in between everything, in here, which this is tight, there's a cap screw you loosen and you adjust that, and that pulls. So there's a way to adjust the backlash out of here, and it's underneath here. It's really, really simple. So let's put this back on real quick. Get set up here. So yeah, I've been very pleased with it. Everything has been working great thus far. No major issues or concerns. Get back out here on the outside diameter where I need to be. So you actually pull out here, and then you can rotate everything as you need to for whatever turns. Like I said, there's lots of videos that talks about how to do this, and so what I found interesting was, and it took me a little bit to figure it out. Let me move this out of the way. I'll go ahead and show you guys. Set this up here. So I'm going to back the camera out a little bit. Well, actually, I'll do it right. Back the camera out just a little bit. Okay, so dividing heads, operation manual, and parts list. Now, we know that when you get manuals with items that are written, distributed by, and there it is in Chinese, whatever that reads, whoever the inspector was, they actually did a pretty good job when they're talking about this and translating everything, talking about the different sizes that's in here and different ones. Because this manual is pretty much one fits all, basically. So here's a set of gears that you can get, I suppose, if you need to go do that type of indexing. For indirect indexing, that's what you'd use all those for. And again, there are videos out there, and that really gets complicated and can, so I don't that's some serious stuff and a lot of math involved to get that. If you're going to be doing something that creative, that's I would definitely say, if you have that set up on your mill and you have to do something like that, that's going to be a pretty interesting project. So you have direct, indirect, and then you have your differential. Or I'm sorry, not differential. Here's what I've noticed. Depending on, I will say this, because it's been a little confusing for me, trying to learn more about it, depending on who is writing whatever manual, they do use the term differential, but that's not, differential, indifferential, and I'm like, and it got a little confusing reading through some other people's books that are out there that I purchased to look through, and it really got complicated. I'm like, I don't know if that's how they used to call it or nowadays, but I'm like, so if I misspeak and get the terms mixed up, I apologize. But we're going to be doing the two most common is direct and indirect, which is either your number falls on a basic number to where you can use and I'm keeping this simple. You can use one of the holes that's in here, kind of like a super spacer, like you're looking for a 5-hole space or a 6 or an 8 or 12, something common like that. Or if you run into an oddball number that doesn't, like let's say 11 or 22 or something odd that doesn't fall, or whatever your divisions doesn't fall within that, that's indirect, and that's a project I've got coming up, and I'll talk about that. Okay, and we'll walk it through. So again, on the manual here, they give you a basic rundown of everything. I'm trying to get it so you guys can kind of see, and they give you some basics here. This one is a Brown & Sharp 3. It's a huge model, and they give you, this is what they talked about here in behind, the Brown & Sharp, or the BS0 and the BS1. What I talked about there, that is behind the wheel. You loosen that, and there is a set screw, and that's how you take the backlash out of everything. And they talk about moving through the gates for indirect indexing and everything. Differential indexing. Okay, so this is where they talk about differential indexing. Here, this is when you're going to get stuff set up, and they have the math and the gear sizes you need, and you're hooking everything up to run off the back. So we have direct, indirect, and differential according to, and then even milling spiral flutes. So that's the stuff that's in this manual. So if you have learned it by a different name and it's different than what I'm saying here, that's where I'm getting the information from. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just what I'm learning here. I know there's everybody, depending on where you're at or when it was taught, they may have different names for it. And so they talk about the application of your change gears, and they give you the basic math in here and stuff depending on what you're doing. So we get into the back, and they give you a basic parts list. So if you need items, or you need to repair or make or whatever, more than likely you're going to make stuff like this. So because I'd always done mine, the stuff I've done, I've always used a rotary table. So you got or a spindexer, so you got 360 degrees, or you use an item that is, so pretty straightforward. Now, because this is semi-universal, and you can do different types of indexing with it, and I'm sure they have one for each one. This is a dividing table. The worm ratio is 40:1. So it took me a little bit in the back. There were these tables in the back, and it took me a little bit to figure out what it was about. Now, they don't say in book here exactly what T, H, N, and all that, and then A, B, C, D, E, whatever. So I had to extrapolate. There's a big word like gymnasium, okay, or procrastination. There's another big word. So it took me a little bit to figure out. So what I'm calling it, just to keep it simple, in the book, so the numbers on the top here, they actually go from 1 all the way up to, you have this page, you have these two, this one, and this one. So it goes all, and then down to here is the very final. So it goes up to 380. Excuse me, had some hair in my mouth. So, and it started to click when I was going through the math. I'm like, okay, all right. So for the T, H, and N, I'm calling it T for teeth. Now, depending on whether you're cutting a gear, whether you're cutting a gear or splines for a shaft, I'm just, for reference, for the future, I'll just say T for teeth. Now, it's just to keep it simple, just because how I try to keep things, and you make little understandings to yourself to where when you go back, you're like, okay, so I know in my brain I'll say T for teeth, which it might be a spline, you can call it S, you can call it whatever. You call it Q if you want to, literally. But, so for all intents and purposes, T, we'll call it teeth from now on. So up here on T, depending on how many teeth, so literally if we wanted to cut up to 380 teeth on a gear, we could. Pretty interesting. So back here, I was working on an item that has 22 splines on it. So I had to go through and do the math and was understanding how the wheels work. And there's some people out there, and I was even reading some books, and I'm not going to mention the names here because, I really wasn't impressed with them. One book written by a gentleman that's really common out there, I read through it and it got so convoluted and he made so many examples, you got lost. Now, if you're a math whiz and you're good with math and you're one of those people, like I said, that's Rain Man, it was like, oh yeah, the answer is, and I'm like, so if you're new to it or you have trouble with math like I did growing up, and I don't hide the fact, I was great at English and literature and composition, I was great at that, or if you're new to it and someone goes into that much detail and they throw a million examples, it really scares you or discourages you. So I always like to, as I say, pull the math out. Now, that's not to say you're not supposed to use math. I try to bring it from an approach of, here's how simple it is, and everybody learns differently. So it took me a little bit going through the math and like I said, I've watched other videos out there and read books and everything, and everybody kind of puts their own, I guess, to be unique or show off. They use this fancy and all these other long words, and I'm like, guys, just keep it simple. So I was reading through this book, and the guy showed, I don't know how many different ways and examples, and it really got confusing. So then I ran across the other gentleman who had the video, Machine Moments, I talked about him, and he kept it simple. Very basic, very easy to understand. So I went through, asked him some questions. He's like, okay, all right. So I figured out. Now I'm starting to get it and understand it, how the whole, depending on how you want to find the divisions. So what's nice, it clicked. I'm like, wait a minute, okay. They've already done the math for us on 40 to 1, on a 1 to 40 ratio. I've been saying 40 to 1, but on the worm ratio, which in order to get this to turn 1 revolution, you have to turn this handle 40 times. Now, there's other heads out there that are not 40 to 1. I've heard of 60 to 1, 90 to 1, who knows? So if you're unsure on your dividing head, what I suggest is you take something like an indicator like this, okay? Put you a mark, okay? And just some Sharpie, and scratch it, and then just leave it there, and then count how many times you have to turn this handle and how many rotations it takes to get this to come around 1 full time. Then you know for a fact, don't assume they're all 40 to 1. So they already did the math in the back. It was pretty cool about it. So because I needed a 22, and the way the math worked out, and again, you could use a 23 hole, or down here, if you look at the very bottom, it kind of split it. I don't know if the camera will show it or not. It'll kind of zoom in there. So what it is, because I have a 33 hole plate, because 22 is, how the math works out is you could do 11, 22, 33, 40, see, whatever the guy's like. Okay, well, I've got a 33 hole plate, which is what is on here. So I'm like, okay, so it said 33, which I figured that out on this second one, and down here, or the number you're wanting to end up with, it'll give like, a number, a slash, and then another number, which this was 33, meaning your whole plate. How many? Oh, so that's the whole plate. That's where I'm like, wow, okay. So according for that, so for this, I'm using the 33 hole pattern in order to get 1 rotation, because I have to go around and make the whole shaft to get to my next space, to space it correctly. So you would start off with it in right here. We just start off there, and so you count in the hole in front of you, and it's on the very outside. So what I did is I counted 27 holes, and then I set my gate and I locked it up. So in order to do this, for that setup, and then you make your cut, whatever it is, and that was another reason I had to fix that, because right there the gate would slide down. So it's set, you pull it out, and you rotate 1 full turn, and then you come 27 holes, and you're good to go. And then so go ahead and there you go, do your cut, boom, same thing, 1 and 27 holes, and you just go that until you finally make one full rotation and get your cuts out of it. So they actually took all the math out of it, and I got to look and I'm like, okay, so if you look at them, and they broke it down, so they start at 1 and go all the way to 380. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it's already got the math in the back. They didn't explain that anywhere in this manual. It took me a little bit to figure it out. So I thought that was pretty cool. So a 1:40 ratio. They've already got this stuff in the back. So that was pretty handy. I don't know if I'm gonna, because I have a lot, I have a lot on my plate. I don't know if I'm gonna. I would like to be able to get this in a digital format. But if you guys have a question and you're like, hey, can you tell me the number of rotations for? If you have trouble with the math, just my public email address, eagledustoff37@gmail.com. And it's if you have a 1:40 and you want to know the number for whatever, hit me up real quick. I can look it up in the back. I can shoot you the numbers and say, hey, okay, if a 1:40, this is if you, depending on what whole plates you have available. I know sometimes you can get these on the internet and they only have one plate, or you need to have, okay, well, what other plates should there be with it? I know it came with mine here in the divisions, but I would like to really put that into digits. Now that's one of those, it's a bridge too far type thing right now. I've got too much on my plate. But if you guys are curious, and again, I'm not going to go into, I'm not a person to be teaching this is the correct math formula and whatever, trust me. But if you guys want to know real quick and you don't have, and you're not getting your head wrapped around the math and you want to know so you can get your project done, and you have a 1:40 head and you're like, okay, what whole plate do I need? How many revolutions and holes between the gates do I need for the next? Holler at me and I'll be more than happy to email that to you and get back with you guys. So that's kind of a very basic, loose, this is what I got. As a matter of fact, the chuck key, it's the exact same size, which is nice, as the chuck key on my lathe. So that makes it handy, So I'm not going to take and turn this one really, really long. So that's handy. I like it when everything is, somewhat universal, if we will. So I've got a lot of stuff coming up, and I don't want to, go into that. I will talk about some other stuff in another video on how to level your head, or how I do it, and get, if it's adjustable, how to get everything straight. So there you go. If you guys have any questions, I know All Industrial Tool Supply has these. They have them out there in different sizes. They have some that don't come with the chuck. And you get the chuck extra. I know everybody's different, and there's different ones. It's a good piece of equipment to have and use if you're going to be doing a lot of, building small shafts or something like that you need different things and cutters and whatever. So a very, very useful tool. By all means, you can definitely, I'm really, really excited about it. You can do a lot with a rotary table, but this here is kind of, it's pretty neat to have, especially if you have to create something where it's on, an odd angle or something. So on the rotary table, it's either vertical or horizontal, whereas this, if I have to create like a bevel gear or something, because you have a gear that's at a 45, because you have two bevel gears coming together, you can set this on 45 and you can make bevel gears. You can't do that on a rotary table. So that's where this comes in handy. So there you go. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Let me move this over here a little bit. Get that, all right. Again, thank you to all my new YouTube subscribers. I greatly appreciate it. Comment section below. You guys give them a shout out. If you have any questions about anything and you're interested in purchasing into the tooling or stuff that I use, www.allindustrial.com. You can call them and ask for Mr. Jim Henry. He'll help you out. Jeff Perry is the owner, and they'll get you hooked up. A shout out again to American Rotary Phase Converters. You guys, they're awesome people. If you want a rotary phase converter, look them up. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at eagledustoff37@gmail.com. Till next time, and I truly mean it, take care of yourself and take care of your family, because remember, at the end of the day, you and your family is all you got. Happy New Year coming up here, 2017. Until next time, you guys be safe. Get out in the shop. Be safe coming up here in 2017. And Get your dividing head. This stuff is fun. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.